right, guys, we're here with Ibou, wrestling purist, self-made. Ibou, have you trademarked wrestling slut since the last episode?
No, I actually filed a defamation lawsuit, and I talked to my lawyer about that one. We considered it, but ultimately my lawyer said it's just not really worth going through the whole process legally. But that one's not sticking. That one's not sticking.
All right, I don't know if it fit your brand or whatnot. So,
Yeah, I
all
don't
right,
know about that one, man. I'm not sure about the wrestling slut one. Yeah.
but self-made wrestling purist is what you're most known for, and I'm glad to have you back here on the No So, and we're gonna kind of preview another John Cena match. Now, the John Cena match that we previewed for WrestleMania, the result quality-wise perhaps wasn't what we desired, but
No,
overall, I feel like this one has much high hopes.
I'll say this. It's definitely more interesting going into it. John Cena has kind of shown in this retirement run like where he's at physically, and he's in a place that I don't think it leads to much promise for the match. Um, we'll see. I'll say this: the Punk Cena exchanges in their brief moments against each other in the Elimination Chamber were nice,
Yes.
but that was a couple minutes. This is going to be a main event match, and like I said, I haven't loved John Cena specifically with in terms of where he's at physically, and Punk's not really Punk. Punk can still go. I don't see him being a guy that can make up for the slack for someone else's lack of physicality in the wrestling match. So I'm curious how this goes. But then again, these guys have always had a weird chemistry that's always just kind of worked weirdly between the both of them. And so I'm curious to see if they rekindle that here. Regardless though, going into the match, the story that they're telling is the most interesting story that John Cena has been um, engulfed in since starting this retirement tour is the best way I would put it. So there's a lot to talk about from that standpoint, and I'm very curious how their next two TV interactions are going to go, because we're now coming off, Ryan. We're 2 days removed from the big John Cena reverse pipe bomb, which we're going to get into today, and that got a lot of people talking. John Cena levied some big time verbal bombs at at CM Punk, and it's going to be on this channel where I'm going to be giving my first extensive public comment on this promo. And I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to be here, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
No doubt, as am I. So let's just kind of dive right into it. I agree with the sentiment that this is probably the best scenario for John to go out there and have a good match, right? Like Punk can't really create the movement like a young guy could, right? But I think
Right.
he can create the organic investment. And he
Mm.
had that with John, that is, had that with Orton. And I really like that match for what it was. And I think
Mm.
that they can totally outkick that coverage there with Punk, just with the history and the quote unquote magic that these guys have. So, from a quality standpoint, this probably has the potential to be John's best match since this run started. But the bar isn't super high. Honestly, it's the Orton match, which was like 3.5, right? So I'm
Yeah.
I'm excited for John to have a chance to go out there and deliver from a quality standpoint when the man doesn't really take many bumps, right? The boy, he ain't taking shit for bumps, but
Mm-hmm.
there's they got the magic and there's a recipe because of the story to have the investment. And I don't think Saudi really is an issue from a crowd investment standpoint either. I think that they will totally be fine with this as well. So I'm looking forward to it. And I actually have high hopes where I was skeptical heading into WrestleMania from a quality standpoint.
Yeah. My whole thing is just I hope that this is the match where they keep the bullshit to a minimum when it comes to the ref bumps and the low blows and all that type of stuff. Look, John Cena's a heel. He's probably going to cheat at some point. And spoiler alert, I'm leaning towards Cena going over in this match. And so I'd imagine he does so through nefarious means. But that does not mean that you have to copy the formulas that he approached the Cody match and the Randy match with, because like you just said, you had the Randy match as his best thing, but even that was not like a blowaway classic or anything like that. I struggled with that one. So to me, this is an opportunity to right the ship in every way. It's an opportunity to right the ship with just the direction of John Cena's character, with his approach to his matches, and everything in between. It's his retirement tour. We are in June. We have 5 months to go, Ryan. 5 months. That's it. And he cut a promo on Friday that, if nothing else, even if you're like the low man on the promo, if nothing else, it was a marked departure from how he was approaching his television appearances a month ago, 2 months ago, you know. And so, again, this is an opportunity to say, all right, let's approach this from a different angle. Forget the final boss, Rock and Travis Scott. Rock's not gonna come; he's not around. So leave that one alone. Okay,
Bald-headed
Travis
fraud.
Scott, that whole thing, disaster. Let's leave that alone. You people and that whole deal with the wrestling fans,
Lazy.
lazy. Not much there to sink your teeth into. So let's approach this differently. And who better to kind of let John Cena reshuffle the deck, so to speak, than CM Punk, a guy who historically has made the most sense in opposition to the John Cena character, something that I'll get into. Um, it's always funny how that works out, Ryan, where when John Cena's creative just isn't really clicking and it's hard to find him believable and so on and so forth. You put him in opposition with CM Punk, even when the dynamics are different or weird or whatever, or when they're completely flipped like they are now. Um, you get a better John Cena coming out of that. And so, like I said, Friday's promo was big from an interest standpoint. This match will be big from a let's turn this ship around and approach the wrestling different. And let's really get something out of this retirement tour.
No doubt. You agree that CM Punk is his best rival historically?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. Then probably Edge, and then maybe like Styles and Orton, right? But yeah, I think Punk is, from a overall presentation, promos, match quality, organic vibes, like absolutely.
I just feel like CM Punk and John Cena is the rivalry that allowed John Cena to just make more sense to me and to a lot of wrestling fans. And I kind of tweeted about this already, but what a lot of people struggled with John Cena, especially if you were a fan from a certain generation and you were into WWE or watching WWE before John Cena's big push. Because if your fandom coincided with Cena's push, this is not really going to apply to you, because to you, the WWE that you've always known has been a WWE with John Cena as the main character, as the top guy, as the babyface, right? But for a lot of people that watched WWE before, there was a disconnect for many people, and
Especially our age. Yeah.
yeah, and part of the disconnect was just, I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I don't believe in him. He's not my guy. He's not my baby face. He's not my top guy. He's not my face of WWE.
Forced down our throat. He's the same promo every time. And we're kind
Right,
of getting this. We're kind of getting this in a heel run now, right?
right.
So
And so the thing about John is, if you go back and watch 2005, 2006 John Cena, 2007 John Cena, and this is not me saying that like he didn't do anything good during these periods. He had a lot of great matches in the stretch that I'm talking about, and had some damn good programs in this period. But with that said, there is a feeling of he is ticking the boxes of what a WWE top guy is supposed to do, especially at that time. Top guy in WWE in 2006, 2007, you got to be a little funny. You got to be able to quip with people. You got to be able to do that show opening promo. Welcome to Monday Night Raw. All the things that are asked and demanded of a WWE top guy, and he was fulfilling that role, and he did a good job, generally speaking. But a lot of fans saw through it, and they didn't buy it, and that's why they rallied behind Rob Van Dam or whoever it might have been in opposition to John Cena. And so that's what John Cena was for years. It was the guy that they didn't buy or accept or embrace, in spite of the company pulling out every stop to try to get you to. And then because of that, Ryan, it just alienated the hardcore fans even more. That's how you got the anti-Cena. That's how you got the anti-Cena sentiment. That's how you got the "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks," and everything in between. And again, this is the John Cena that he played until the end of the 2000s. It's top guy, babyface, never give up, never back down from any challenge put in front of me, all that type of stuff. Right? We now get to 2011. And by this point, a lot of the hardcore fans have abandoned the WWE.
There's
They're
other
this
alternatives. Yeah.
Yes, they have pursued alternatives. John Cena represents a WWE that they no longer want any part of. CM Punk emerges during a period where a lot of these guys are disillusioned. And for these people at this point, John Cena as a concept was contradictory. He was, to them, disingenuous. He was someone that they didn't believe in. CM Punk comes in, and for these people at this time, he was the guy that finally took a lamp and put a light on this thing. And this is not to say that there had never been characters on the wrestling show that have, on some level, metatextually questioned the idea of John Cena, but never to that level and that degree and that successfully. CM Punk does this, and it's the actual effectiveness of the pipe bomb. It's the actual reason why, Ryan, people, when Punk was coming to AEW,
Hmm.
I remember seeing people in my replies going like, "Hey, I wasn't watching super close at the time, or I wasn't watching it all. Like, what's the big deal about the pipe bomb? Like, what's the big deal about the pipe bomb?" And it's a good question to ask because if you just watch it in a vacuum, okay, like yeah, the guy was just talking some shit and mentioned Ring of Honor and New Japan and Colt Cabana. What's the big deal, right? What's the big deal?
There's a
Because
pushback on establishment, man. You know,
and that's why context is so important
no
because
doubt.
in 2011 a guy doing this was big time. And again, yes, on the surface, on a cursory level, there was a lot of shock to Paul Heyman at that time being mentioned because he had been out of the company for 5 years. There
Yeah.
was a lot of shock to mentioning Ring of Honor on Monday Night Raw.
New Japan Wrestling. Yeah.
New Japan Pro Wrestling mentioned on Monday Night Raw. Colt Cabana.
Scott
That's all
Colton.
right. So yes, that is shocking. That is eye-catching. That is the sexy headlines from the promo. But the actual effectiveness and meaning behind the promo was, oh my God, a guy finally told it like it is on the
Hmm.
show, not just about WWE, but about John Cena. And the fact that he isn't like a real person on the show. He's an idea. And the idea of him is an idea that I've never really liked. And finally, someone has said this. And that's what CM Punk was. And then what happened, Ryan, was it unlocked John Cena. What I mean by this is no longer was it just, oh, I'm John Cena. I never back down. I'm going to fight for you guys. Blah, blah, blah. Never give up. Now it's John Cena on the defensive, having to defend not who he is as a wrestler, but what he is as a concept in the grander scheme of pro wrestling. It made the whole thing meta. And it's really weird how that happened, but it was a thing that put John in a framework that you could believe more. Because instead of him just being the guy that you saw, now he's the guy who has to fight on behalf of himself being the chosen anointed face of the company. And Punk dissecting that and exploring that and examining it. And you as a viewer watching as they're doing it before your eyes. They're not doing this in an interview or, in a written statement. It's happening on television. Wrestling television, like they had done worked shoots before, oh, in real life, you're a piece of shit, da da da, blah, 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 blah. But that's not what this was. This was taking the fabric of pro wrestling, putting it on the show and going like, this guy functions in this way, and this is what it means for WWE, and I'm dismantling it. It's slightly different. And it's very interesting because to me, that's the actual success of the pipe bomb. The success of the pipe bomb was the deconstruction of the idea of John Cena and what he means to pro wrestling. And how eye-opening it was for CM Punk to put a lampshade on just how contradictory John Cena was as a concept. And I say all of this to say that they had that feud, and then they did the Punk went heel in 2012, but continued to do this, went into going the story direction. But you fast forward now, Ryan, and in 2025, that's what they're doing again.
Yes.
CM Punk now is a guy that, if you really look at it, there are a couple elements about him and his character that are very contradictory when it comes to just him as a television personality and what he stands for and what he fights for and what he says versus what he does, how he is on the show, the fact that he is a punk at the end of the day. He's a punk, right? He fights for the little guy and, so on and so forth, and the social causes that he champions. But then at the end of the day, it's like, he gets paid by TKO. He's going to Saudi Arabia, so on and so forth. And it's like, man, the punk guy is the guy who comes on Raw and goes, "Is it great to be alive on a Monday night in Phoenix, Arizona, or what?" And you're like,
Yeah.
man, that's kind of weird, And again, people, just like with John Cena in the 2000s, people have absolutely challenged the idea of CM Punk prior to Friday. That's kind of been the basis of most of his programs since coming back. However, never in this specific way. It's the work shoot thing of, you're just a piece of shit in real life. Oh no, I'm not. You're a piece of shit. This isn't that. This is Punk saying, no. I'm not actually just going, hey, Punk's a bad guy because he fought the Young Bucks. John Cena here is going, the character of CM Punk is kind of broken in the same way that Punk did to him in 2011. And so that parallel, that paradigm shift is absolutely compelling. There's a lot there. It's very interesting. And it now frames the entire program such in a way where you wonder, like, man, is CM Punk going to turn as a result of this? What's going to happen? But at the same time, John Cena didn't turn in 2011. He just continued to exist as a concept. He also had to defend himself, but the way he defended himself was through rah-rah speeches and charisma and platitudes and this and that.
Hmm.
And Punk is in a weird spot where he's going to have to do the same because, Ryan, I don't know what his credible rebuttals are going to be to the things that John Cena levied against him. When Punk was saying all that shit about John in 2011, he wasn't wrong. So Cena had to go in a different direction. CM Punk here now, he could vouch for his own character all he wants. But like a lot of the literal things that John Cena said were factually true. And so because of that, Punk's gonna have to just charisma his way out of this one, just talk his way out of it. Or he has to turn.
So there are four lines in here that I kind of bullet pointed as either damaging, testing, or like what you just said could be like pivot points. So
Yeah.
no one's coming out because I'm your only friend. You have no friends, right?
Yeah.
You used to be the voice of the voiceless. No more. You're a millionaire despite yourself. A call back to Vince being a millionaire should be a billionaire. And these are all callbacks to Punk's verbiage in the pipe bomb. This was my personal favorite. Same five microphone moves of doom.
Yeah.
Self-deprecation, but stinging. Your potato salad promo, and then you're no more punk rock. You're Mr. TKO. So those are four biting lines with the baseline. What you just talked about. How does Punk rebuttal those lines with just charisma? And how does he rebuttal those lines while skating on the fact that he is heading to Saudi Arabia, even though there's only a fraction of the fans that know the gist of, go suck a blood Saudi level, whatever dick he said to the Miz, and then the 2-night WrestleMania extravaganza in Saudi Arabia, whatever lines he said publicly in the past about here, and then just whatever he stands up for. So they've got him to go. He's probably known for a while, of course. They didn't just spring on this. He showed up Monday night and they said, hey, you're going to Saudi Arabia. Here's your plane ticket. You're wrestling John Cena. So he's known about this. So he's could have done a shitload of baseline things that we are not even aware of for him to rebuttal to this. But those four lines within that John Cena pipe bomb, are they damaging? Are they something for Punk to bite into? Or are they story-related pivots for either guys? What do you think?
It's a great question because I'm glad you brought this up. I'm watching this thing and I'm like, my God, how does Punk come back from some of these things?
Yes.
Especially when to this WWE audience, in front of this WWE audience specifically, they love Punk.
I love Punk. Yes.
Yeah, there hasn't been this undercurrent of like, I don't know about this guy. There was a little bit of that in AEW during the period right before the Brawl Out situation. There was like some faint dissension amongst the fans.
Yeah.
when it comes to how they felt about Punk. That hasn't happened here. And so if anything, John Cena opened a can of worms.
And Punk has been extremely protected within the booking since 2023, since his return. Never
Extremely
taken pinfall.
protected.
Yes.
The fans love him. There has never been a situation where he was booed.
Nope.
And John Cena, if anything, kind of slapped the fans, the WWE audience, and said, hey, I don't know about this guy. Let's take a look at this. And again, it's just fascinating because if anything, he just bat signaled and activated potentially a bunch of people for this specific thing. Like with Punk, like how are they going to react to him now that John Cena shined a light on the fact that, oh, Punk's a hypocrite. Oh, Punk says the same thing in all his promos. Punk this and that. Does Punk get same old shit chance? Probably not. It's not 2005.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting now, like do the live crowds now, like, are they cheering him while also being aware of these things that John Cena made them aware of? And then how does that affect CM Punk? You brought up a good point. You said John Cena pointed out that I'm your only friend. CM Punk said on his first day, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. CM Punk had a backstage segment with Sami Zayn not long ago where he essentially said, where he basically expressed that like he doesn't trust Sami, and Sami, they basically kind of had like a moment of understanding. And it's very clear that there's tension between the two. However, they're willing to work with each other for the greater good of dealing with Seth Rollins and his guys. And it just makes it interesting because it's like, if Punk, let's say they work this into the story that Punk is now paranoid about his standing amongst his peers, Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn, for example. How does that affect him on screen as a character? These are all just interesting questions to ask. And again, the power of the segment, Ryan, on Friday, is that it opened up Pandora's box narratively. And that's why you should always encourage in storytelling depth and thought. Because when you do that, it gives yourself more places to go. And you don't have all these places to go when you go out there with lightweight material like, you guys boo me, you're bad. There's just not a lot you can do with that. It just not a lot of things you can do. You can't make a lot of different dishes of food with that, so on and so forth. When you look at things the way that they did to approach the promo, the way they approached it on Friday, you now have so many different directions to go in. That's why you tell stories that way.
Behind the scenes connections, as we kind of veer away from we'll get back to the meat and the bones of this. Who pitched the Cena bomb? Do you think that was creative, Punk, Cena? How long did they know they were going to do it? And do you think they did a good job leading up to it? Because it kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest, just like Punk's did in 2011.
That's a great question. I think who pitched it?
Yeah, like a writer. Like, does John bring it to the table? I doubt John brought it to the table. Does Punk bring it to the table?
I think it was. I think it's a collaborative thing between Punk and Cena.
Okay. Do you think it was storyboarded, or do you think it's like, man, this is kind of weak? We need something. Talking meat and potatoes here. You know what I mean? In the weeds here.
I think John got with a writer and said, what's the most effective way to dissect CM Punk?
Okay. And then they kind of just went to they re-listened to the Punk promo, and then they just, pretty much just spit on that verbiage wise and cadence wise. And it really was honestly poetic and to the point of what Punk said. And it really was a baseline of good shit, pal, at the end of the day. Right. So it worked. So I was just curious what you thought, because you're in the weeds. I'm in the weeds. You know what I mean? So we're in the weeds. So we might as well see where we're at. I'm just curious of how that sausage was made.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and the public will likely never know the intricacies about, like, whose idea was this line? Whose idea was that line? Da da da. CM Punk will never tell you himself publicly in an
Just
interview.
curious your thought. Yeah, because I find it interesting.
I think it's super interesting. But yeah, man.
All right. Claudio Castagnoli, Nick Nemeth, Matt Cardona. Is there meat to that juice, or do you think it's just a coincidence? With fit to be the Bucks and Colt Cabana.
Oh, with the name parallels.
Yeah, the Nick, the Matt, and then the CC. Do you think
I
there's
think
anything there?
yeah. I don't think it was a coincidence.
Yeah, it can't. That's the CC is like well, personally, like Cena. I think it's come out that Cena, Seth Rollins, and Cesaro, Claudio are in like a coffee group chat that talks like weekly. You know what I mean? So I think he's doing his boy a solid. He likes Cardona, and of course he likes Nemeth. So I think it's these all guys Cena likes, and it was just, and I think that he's like, oh well, I like all these guys, and then yeah, you think that for sure it was kind of taking a shot.
I think it was one of those double entendres where you can catch the Easter egg if you like, and you don't need to if you don't catch it.
Now, is
I
that
think
shot at them, AEW, or Punk? I think it was at Punk.
it's just a needle at CM Punk. It's a needle at CM Punk in the segment. And again, because I remember when I tweeted this, people were like, "Oh my god, that makes it lame," or "Oh my god, that makes it even stupider because I had to like people don't like the idea of having to like. I'll put it this way. The sentiment generally from a lot of people is I would prefer more directness in promos rather than how do I put this? The kind of mazy way that a Bray Wyatt or an Aleister Black would speak. And I understand that. I really do, right? But with that said, in this case, it wasn't one of those things where you need to like read all this extensive stuff to understand what he's saying. Because to me, it functioned like a rap double entendre, where it's like there's a surface line that you can take from, and if you catch the Easter egg double meaning, then it's even better. But you don't have to, and it's not a barrier for understanding of the promo.
Yeah, I saw it as like Jimmy's on a Sunday, right? It's not needed, but it works great. You know, I mean, it adds to that Sunday. That's how I looked at it for sure.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, and then him at the end saying, "You're welcome, Grand Rapids. Thank you for letting me steal your promo," or whatever he said to Punk. But do you think that Cena was satisfied at the end of that, or you think he's like gloating a little bit that he knew he crushed it, or do you think it was like inside himself he's like finally like good shit because I've been just, to his own words, having promo potato salad the last 6 months. Do you think he was doing a little celebratory fucking yay me type of thing? That's kind of how I took it when he was just like, "You're welcome," or whatever. His little cheering at the end.
I think he was just looking for a hard line to end his promo on. But I'll tell you this. Look, John's not going to publicly sell how he feels about his own retirement run in terms of whether it's worked or not. But I think that there's been a couple subtle concessions that he's made publicly recently about like it. He made a tweet not long ago where he basically was saying like, you got to continue to listen, learn, and tweak with what you're doing on the fly. Like I think he said something along those lines. And it's the true thing about wrestling, man. You don't just kind of you can't tunnel vision this shit. It's a constant like temperature check. It's a constant taste test. And what worked yesterday doesn't work today. And what didn't work yesterday shouldn't be a thing that you do today or tomorrow. You should always constantly be tweaking to see what's working. And to me, what I would say is I think John, in his heart of hearts, if you gave him a truth serum, I think what John would say is I think it's clicking now.
Yeah.
And the jury's out. Like I'm not gonna completely immediately be like, all right, guys, let's throw a parade. John Cena has now fixed himself as a heel because it could just be this specific situation with CM Punk where they just work and then God forbid he goes back to work with another guy and it just doesn't it's back to the bullshit. Hopefully not. But it would be awesome if a switch was flipped here that doesn't get flipped back off from this point onward. Because kind of like 2011, like I just said, dude, John figured out the zone to operate in 2011, and he generally, for the most part, stayed within that zone for the rest of the decade. What I mean by that is, John Cena, the idea was your main character in 2013 when he's feuding with Daniel Bryan, or when he was working with AJ Styles. Similar frameworks and approaches. And it's not just, I'll beat you, Bryan, because I work harder and I'm like, you're a bad guy and I'll never give up. It was more like, yeah, I am the measuring stick of this company. And they think you're a B-plus player, but I don't. And these people love you. And let's see if you can take on the measuring stick. And the AJ Styles feud, it was a lot of similar beats to what happened with Punk and Cena. So my point is, I hope that similarly coming out of this program with CM Punk in 2025, you have a John Cena that now there's more nuance to what he's doing. One of my favorite moments in the segment was when they're chanting Cena, and he smirks and acknowledges that he's being cheered, and he nods his head. But then he also kind of just like shakes his head also at the end of it and basically waves it off, almost dismisses it. The reaction to me read as, all right, you guys get it, but like, what do you fuck? It's too late now, Yeah. And to me, there's something interesting about John Cena being a man in conflict with himself and with his relationship with the wrestling fans, and fighting that for the rest of this run. And again, that's subtlety. That's nuance. That's the kind of thing you can get when you don't overplay this, when you're not cartoony about it, when you're not over the top about it and basic. So coming out of this Punk thing, if we get the slow babyface transition and you do it that way, where like he's fighting with himself and the fans are, on his side and so on and so forth, it'd be interesting.
All right, and I think his closing line, just to kind of circle back, not too far, but just to put a stamp on that, the mood has changed, the best in the world versus the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So that the mood has changed is hopefully the sentiment that sticks with that promo that he kind of cut there, and his character, most importantly.
Absolutely.
All right, character-wise, CM Punk, you kind of sensed a little bit of, this is the first time that it's maybe perhaps vulnerable. I think that he's kind of bulletproof in a way, and I think he'll be fine. But how this match concludes and like how they get there may be a little damaging. This is the first time I ever thought that in the CM Punk run, in the CM Punk return. Not that they need to, tippy toe to the finish line, of course, right? But I feel that if it's wonky or if it's not the best match, because Punk hasn't really had a stinker yet, right? Cena's had a few. Punk has not really had a out loud stinker. He's been, especially in 2025, the two Rollins match, the Sammy match, he's done really well. Romania was fantastic, right? So he's done extremely well. And then these two in the chamber for those 5 minutes or whatever, right? So Punk has really delivered in-ring wise. Cena hasn't. I just sense with how they presented him, of course he has 2 more promos to kind of verbally kind of rebuttal what Cena delivered, but in-ring wise, they've kind of set him up to not really be CM Punk coming out of it where he's been if they don't, like, you get what I'm saying vibe wise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. I feel that he's a little vulnerable when he hasn't been at all.
Yeah, it puts him in a very interesting position because now I'm just very curious how he deals with that.
Yeah.
How does CM Punk handle that? And I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. So, but again, this is where it's like not cutting time, dude. This is when you put pressure onto a rock to see if a diamond will be made. Like that's how I look at stories like this, because the best stories come to me, in my opinion, when you take an idea, a concept, a person, and you put it under fire and see what happens, and you challenge it. You challenge just its makeup, And in the same way, Punk could trudge along being CM Punk and get cheered and do his, as Cena said, the 5 promo moves of doom for the
Yeah.
rest of the year. And he'd be able to make it out fine. But sometimes I think if you want greatness, you have to break things down. You have to cut them open and see what's inside and what they're made of. And in this case, challenging CM Punk here before the fans have turned on him, a thing that wasn't on track to naturally happen this year, is a ballsy thing to do. And so could it fall flat on? Could it lead to like disaster? Yeah, it could. But could it also lead to more interesting storytelling? Absolutely. Because now
Yeah.
Punk the performer, the writing team, and WWE themselves are forced to answer a number of tough questions. Who is CM Punk? Is CM Punk a hero? Is CM Punk a good guy in spite of all the things levied at him? Is CM Punk a hypocrite? Is CM Punk more than just the 5 promo moves of doom? Is CM Punk for Saudi and TKO, or is he for the people? These are questions that they allowed to just be unaddressed on the television and unacknowledged. But now that they are on the television, you have to offer up answers for your audience. These are very difficult questions because once you have an answer, you have to pick that direction and stick to it. And if WWE, if the writing team, if CM Punk the performer decide no, Punk is a hypocritical scumbag that doesn't give a fuck about anything other than himself, his image, and money, and that's where they go on TV, then that's where you go. And that's a radical shift.
It is. Especially how he's been presented. He would have to play on the other side of the fence where he's been at. All right. This feels like it should be more than one match. John Cena's running out of time and appearances. He's in the teens. I'm a little worried that this is probably the only match. I don't really love that it's in Saudi, but it is what it is. I think they'll make the best of it. We're at the end of this preview, Ibou. We're going to have a little bit, maybe another thing or two to jump into after this. But prediction-wise, I'll go first, and then you can go second, just to rebuttal off what I have to say. But I feel like they're going to have a very good match. Hopefully Cena's best match, even though the bar is pretty low. So I trust them to get there. But I feel that Cena probably will win, and the finish will probably clog that star rating, right? But I feel that both guys will be safe coming out of it. That's why I'm kind of like, I think it'll be a very good match, but I doubt we'll get to great. But I think there will be an obstacle to lead to something else for CM Punk and John Cena in 2025. And I feel that crossroads, no pun intended, with Cody Rhodes that we had 2 weeks ago, where they were like, we keep running into each other and it's going to have to happen soon.
Mm-hmm.
I think SummerSlam's a 3-way. It's right off the rip. Rip the Band-Aid off and tell you right away. I think SummerSlam's a 3-way. Cody rings King of the Ring. I think we get a fuck finish here. And Cody, good guy, says, CM Punk, you're in, or they just make it work storyline-wise. That's my call. That's what I get here. I don't know if we get a no finish. I don't know what we get. A fuckery finish. Cena's still the champ heading into SummerSlam, and it's a 3-way with Punk, Cody, and Cena. And I think that's the best case scenario, even though I'm not a multi-man lover, especially on the big pay-per-views. But man, I just see it through the forest, man. I don't know. What about you? Who do you think wins, and what do you think of that 3-way?
I'll tell you what. I really struggle to believe, with all the converging story elements and directions happening right now that are tying into each other, the Punk and Cody brief interactions.
Yes, they've been dynamic. They're electric.
The fact that Seth and Cody are now having some run-ins, and Seth Rollins is holding the Money in the Bank.
Oh, 4-way.
The fact that Cena, oh boy, the fact that Cena and Cody have unfinished business. I really struggle to see this match as just a one-off with a straightforward finish, and Punk is then just out of the picture, and Cody just faces Cena.
That's boring. You can't.
I really struggle, and I don't know. So then I don't know what the alternative is, but I just feel like something really, really funky and out of the box is happening at some point between now and SummerSlam.
They
I don't
need
know if that's
this, like, in my opinion, with it right now.
Say it again.
I think they could afford to take a risk right now with something funky for sure.
I feel like I'm going to do this way. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Seth Rollins cashes in.
At Champions?
Maybe. Because he's feuding with CM Punk.
And he's vowed to never let CM Punk win the WWE Championship.
Correct. And he's now in opposition to Cody Rhodes.
And John Cena's guards down because, well, CM Punk, Seth Rollins would want me to leave the champion or whatever. He cares about. He's brought that on television too, right? He would love for me to leave as champion so he could be the only champion, the world heavyweight champion. Cena said that on TV. So I think we just kind of unlocked Pandora's box a little bit with some of the storytelling that they've had and breadcrumbs that they have laid in the last few weeks.
Regardless of what the match is, this is a four-corner situation heading to SummerSlam, and all these four guys are connected now.
Yeah.
The Seth Punk angle never ended. They didn't end it. They just, Punk took a detour to face Cena out Saudi. And so Hunter doesn't really book like that. Hunter, like he doesn't just drop programs halfway. Like he will, if anything, you're gonna fight the guy like to the death. Like look at Stratton's gonna face Nia again, for example.
It's wild.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I say that to say Punk is absolutely not done with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins holds the Money in the Bank. Seth Rollins doesn't want Punk to be a champion. Punk is in a championship match. And then John Cena is the guy Cody wants to get back to. And Seth Rollins can be a road bump for Cody in that. So, again, it's a four-corner situation. And I don't know how yet, but I think all of these corners will converge at some point.
So Roman Reigns is coming back in the fall.
That would be fucking insane. That's where I'm not sure where he plugs into this, to be honest.
Yeah, if it's the vibe we're talking about in the four people there, unless if they're going like, what were they, 2000 Armageddon, the six biggest stars at the time. You know, I don't think they do that at SummerSlam though. And Cena ain't walking in Hell itself, right? Like, no way, right? So yeah, and plus it's you know, just to push back on that and be a realist, SummerSlam is 2 nights for the first time ever. And that's a lot of star power in one main event. In the night 2 main event, that's a lot of star power that they're sacrificing in just one match. But it's a marquee match nonetheless. So interesting. I just am not dying for Cody Rhodes versus John Cena too whatsoever. And I think it could be low-key damaging to Cody from a presentation standpoint.
The problem is just we heard how that audience reacted to it last time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, do you want to put Cody in that spot again? I mean, they could, but it's just, I don't know, man.
I think he's winning King of the Ring, of course. I think he should.
Yeah, he should win King of the Ring. And he should, no matter what, he should walk out of SummerSlam with the championship, in my opinion.
Ooh, all right. Yeah, if it's multi-man, maybe I'll let him chase more, but we'll see. All right, Ibou, interesting. Do you have a winner here? Punk or Cena? Or what?
Cena/Seth Rollins.
Okay. If there was like a pie chart, you'd have like a Cena with a little slice of Seth Rollins.
Yeah, I'm going 45. I'm going 50. I'm going 60 Cena, 30 Seth, 10 Punk.
All right, and then with that 30th Seth, do we get like a heist of the century where he inserts himself in the match? Does John Cena win, or does CM Punk win, and then he takes it from CM Punk? Which 3 scenario do you out of that would you like to see, and what works the best?
What works the best is Punk barely escaping, only for Seth to fucking curb stomp him and ruin his moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Punk was celebrating with the belt and there's confetti flying and he catches a spear, a tsunami, and a curb stomp, like that would make the most sense.
Okay, interesting. All right, so most likely, I agree. CM Punk is probably winning, and perhaps we should be on Money in the Bank alert Here's a question for you earlier on, Christopher Simmons. Your thoughts on the Saudi situation with the WWE going there?
Yeah, this is not obviously an opportune time. If you're looking at the real world, we are now engaged in conflict directly with Iran.
Yeah.
So Iran is not Saudi Arabia, um, but there have been people that have made the argument that maybe this is just not the best time to travel to the Middle East in general.
Yeah.
And I'm not one to just dismiss any of that. What I'll say is this: I don't think Saudi Arabia is getting bombed, but I'm also not a fucking military intelligence expert. Uh, all I can hope for, really, because this is going to be a thing that people are going to have takes on all week. All I can hope for is the following things, right? I hope that there is an assurance of safety to the talent if they go through with it.
You
I
would
hope
have to think so, right? Yeah.
you would have to think so. I would hope that there is an assurance and guarantee of safety from their government about this, which again, I don't think fucking Saudi is getting bombed. But still, you should still assure the talent of safety and have an assurance on an official capacity before making any decision like that. And it should be something that you monitor and are on top of, because if there's any hint of anything suggesting otherwise, you should immediately pivot to running this at a backup location.
No doubt. And I'm sure that there's protocols and that back up location is already kind of getting worked out for plan B and so on and so forth. Probably be somewhere in Florida where they can take the trucks. And honestly, it probably would be where they were, Tampa. That's my guess. The central Florida or southern Florida, wherever they were for Saturday night's main event, like where they were for the Thunderdome. They seem to have a good relationship there. That's just my guess. I have no idea.
Right.
Or dust off the Evolve in the PC, right? Like, can you imagine Pug seeing in the Evolve arena? Like, what are we doing?
Oh my goodness. What I'm curious about is how many tickets they could sell on like 1 to 2 days notice. This is what I'm
They probably still crush it, to be honest. That's dynamic crushing. Like I went to the Boston Raw back-to-back tapings, and I walked up 20 minutes before bell time. I said, "What's the close?" I was alone. I was like, "What's the closest I can get?" She said, "How front row?" I said, "How much?" She goes, $114. I said, "Say less." I sat front row for 2 Raws for $114. Dynamic pricing is a thing. You can take advantage of it.
I'm just curious, like, because you don't want a situation where it's short notice. You only get 6K in a building or something like that,
Yeah.
unless they say, "Fuck it, guys, we have a show in Night of Champions is now in Tampa. Tickets are cheap as fuck. Come in and they get a bunch of people in the building." I'm not sure that would work, but nevertheless, what I think happens is I think they just go through with the Saudi show anyway. But
I think so.
regardless of what they end up choosing, I just hope for the safety of the talent.
No doubt. And you would assume that they are taking every precaution, and it will be. And for the audio listeners, this is Sunday afternoon. So if anything comes out afterwards where they have all that stuff, we're just unaware of it at the time. So
Right.
all right, Ibou, you got anything else for the listeners out there? We got 143 live right now, and I think we've kind of fluttered around that, give or take. So you got anything for the people out there?
No, man, just follow me at Backup Hangman and follow at Selfmade PW, man. That is the official Twitter account of the Discord that I run alongside 3 of my guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great community. I have a lot of fun in there. We watch a lot of different wrestling. We play video games in there. There's aux battles, movie nights. I played a movie yesterday, and I'm sure they're going to be in there watching basketball tonight. NBA Finals Game 7 is taking place in
2 minutes. Are you all in on the Pacers? I know I ain't.
It is very hard to beat the Thunder in their home court, but they are also a young team, and a young team could piss themselves into Game 7.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I'm not. I really. This is a pick 'em, I think.
Yeah, it's just, and then like Halliburton's injury, when does that start to become an issue as that game ramps up and the
Yeah.
intensity and so on and so forth? I feel like the lopsidedness of Game 6 is only going to favor the Thunder in a way, right? So I don't know. I
Yeah.
would be surprised if the
I
Pacers
think
but they've been shocking the world the whole playoffs.
that's the thing. Logic dictates that the Pacers lose, but I also would not be surprised if this team, if any, fucking wins because it's been that weird of a playoffs for them.
Yeah. Yeah, you would think home ice than me. Home court. Only 4 teams in the history have won on the road too. So,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
numbers would say, but Pacers have been pushing back this whole time against Logic. So,
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. It's so yeah, man. Look, self-made PW is the account, and in the bio is the link to the Patreon. $5 can get you in, and you'll have access to the Discord and all our archived content. We now have all of our podcasted spaces, watch-alongs, so on, aux battles. It's all now archived for listening. So if you're somebody that has long car rides for work, or you're a truck driver, or you're at work, maybe working a night shift where you're bored, whatever it is, you now have shit to listen to. And I know personally, I'm always looking for podcasts and things that I can listen to while I'm at work because I don't want to be bored. So if you're like me, getting in self-made $5, you have access to all this shit, just right at your fingertips, along with all the content that we provide on a daily basis. So get at me there and follow me on Twitter.
yeah, July is loaded. Like you have that weekend and 2 weekends, not including or 3 weekends, is absolutely loaded. So I would you get a full month for try it, and you would get Night of Champions and All In Weekend with Great American Bash, Evolve, Saturday Night's Main Event. All that would include in the month for $5. You try it out. I can't recommend it enough. So check it out, guys. You would get all that within that 5 month or 1 month $5 period. So check it out. It won't hurt anything.
Appreciate that, brother.
No
Appreciate
doubt.
it.
All right, Ibou, we'll have to get you back on here sooner or later. I think we got a little game coming up with you, but for one
Yeah,
of
man.
these lives, perhaps SummerSlam, we'll talk. We'll see what's up.
Yeah, man. You're a good promoter, man. You're like, look, we'll get you in for another date, and I'm down. I like being on this channel. It's partially because like, and I love doing like the Wrestle Pure stuff and the spaces and everything, but like there's certain vibes for certain settings, and this kind of gave me an opportunity to be a little bit more analytical and granular about certain things. So I appreciated the platform to do so.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks for the love, guys, by the way, too. I got a few of my own, and I know you brought the heat, but there's a few of my own in here. Blackstone, um, Janu, Pudgy, all my guys are in here too. So you brought the heat, but my guys came too. So I appreciate all the love from the chat, all
Hell
the
yeah.
interaction. It was fantastic. And Ibou, I'm looking forward to next time, buddy.
Appreciate you, Ryan. See you next time, brother.
Later, guys. Thank you.